Tonight,
there was a bias that needed to be disclosed to the court.
the Blockbuster report on the origins of the Russia investigation.
If you don't have a legal foundation to surveil somebody, is that bad?
Absolutely.
With the Inspector General detailing a failure in the chain of command.
There are no crimes.
This as the president lashes out as House Democrats move closer to a vote on impeachment.
And in the wake of a shooting targeting a Jewish deli in New Jersey, the president issues an order condemning anti-Semitism on college campuses.
Plus, Time Magazine's Person of the Year is a 16-year-old girl.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
The FBI's reputation under fire tonight. Welcome to Faith Nation, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jenna Bratter.
And I'm John Jessup. The man charged with heading up the probe into the origins of the Russia investigation unleashed blockbuster testimony today.
Inspector General Michael Horowitz detailing a failure in the chain of command. CBN News national security correspondent Eric Phillips joins us with more on the first public hearing since Monday's release of the IG report. Eric?
John and Jenna, Horowitz carefully tried to keep his testimony consistent to the 400-page report about the Russia investigation, dubbed Operation Crossfire Hurricane. He could not deny, though, charges about FBI methods that some are calling either sloppy at best or criminal at worst. The IG's report released Monday essentially found just cause to initiate the Russia investigation, something the IG reiterated right off the top.
We found that Crossfire Hurricane was open for an authorized investigative purpose and with sufficient factual predication.
He quickly followed that statement with acknowledgement investigators did not follow proper rules and procedures along the way. This included omitting or changing information on FISA applications that would allow surveillance of Trump campaign aide Carter Page. Information like the fact that the infamous Steele dossier, which was a big consideration in approving the applications, had been funded by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign. The FISA court approved the surveillance applications 4 times.
The circumstances reflect a failure, as we outline in the report, not just by those who prepared the applications, but also by the managers and supervisors in the Crossfire Hurricane chain of command, including FBI senior officials who were briefed as the investigation progressed.
Horowitz went on to explain an overall lack of oversight within the FBI.
Where time and again during our OIG interviews, FBI managers, supervisors, and senior officials displayed a lack of understanding or awareness of important information concerning many of the problems that we identified.
Still, Horowitz underscored finding no political bias during his investigation, something Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham rebuffs.
What has been described as a few irregularities becomes a massive criminal conspiracy over time to defraud the FISA court, to illegally surveil an American citizen, and to keep an operation open against a sitting president of the United States.
Graham read aloud several text messages by those at the highest levels of Operation Crossfire Hurricane.
I'm all riled up. Trump is an effing idiot, is unable to provide a coherent answer. Just went to a Southern Virginia Walmart. I could smell the Trump support. People in charge.
Horowitz maintained those messages did not indicate an improperly authorized investigation.
I believe strongly that it's time to move on from the false claims of political bias. And those who showed great interest in the question of politically motivated investigations against President Trump should show the same concern about politically motivated investigations requested by the President or his Attorney General.
Attorney General Bill Barr has been very outspoken about his disagreement with Horowitz that the investigation was open for proper reasons. Same thing from U.S. Attorney John Durham, who is still conducting a criminal investigation on the matter. Now, the IG's report only recommends disciplinary action against several of those involved in making sure that Mueller investigation got off the ground. John and Jenna.
All right, Eric Phillips, thank you very much. And here now to discuss is Matthew HEIMAN, a former Justice Department lawyer, now with the National Security Institute at George Mason University. Matthew, thank you for stopping by today.
Nice to be with you all.
No matter where you fall on the political spectrum here, one thing that really did come out of these hearings today that was very clear was just how low the bar is to surveil American citizens.
Yeah, I think what the Inspector General Horowitz has made clear is that the bar to open an investigation is pretty low, whether you're talking about a preliminary investigation or a full investigation by the FBI. When it comes to surveillance of a U.S. person, the bar is actually pretty high because you have Fourth Amendment protections that you've got to guarantee. But there are certainly questions around that surveillance investigation that was ultimately opened on Carter Page.
The IG also said that there was a failure in the chain of command at the Bureau. Is this just bad oversight at the FBI?
I think at a minimum, it's bad oversight by the FBI when you have a surveillance, a FISA surveillance where the warrant's renewed 4 times and you have this many errors. It raises a lot of questions about what kind of oversight and fact-checking is going on the FBI side.
Was the surveillance of Trump associates legal?
Well, the IG found that it was properly predicated, meaning they had a justification to open the overall investigation. I think where it gets murkier and the question becomes, where the question gets bigger, is the surveillance warrant, the FISA warrant that was open on Carter Page himself, because it relied on the Steele dossier, because there was this evidence of errors, and there's an open question of bias. I think there is an open question as to whether it was appropriate to do that.
So that was my next question. What about bias at the FBI?
Well, I think, look, every member of the Department of Justice, every member of the FBI has political points of view, as every American does.
Sure.
The requisite for doing that work is that you check that bias at the door. Whatever your feeling is about a party, a candidate, when you come through that door, you check that bias because what you're focused on are the facts, and where do the facts lead you in terms of a criminal or an intelligence investigation. And I think a lot of the concerns you're hearing from the Republicans on the Hill is that they don't believe that these biases were kept separate from the investigatory work.
Based on what we are learning, Matthew, what changes need to be made here?
Well, I think there needs, and you heard Inspector General recommend a number of changes, particularly when you're talking about an investigation of a presidential campaign, that there needs to be greater level of supervision of that. They need to be informing the DOJ before they open those investigations. I know he made about 40 recommendations, and Director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, has accepted all those, so I think there are a lot of changes to come.
All right, Matthew HEIMAN, thank you very much. We have to leave it there.
Thanks, Matthew. Well, to impeachment, the president is lashing out at Democrats for laying out official articles. In the battleground state of Pennsylvania, he rallied the base last night, insisting he's done nothing wrong.
And there are no crimes. This has to be a first in history. They're impeaching me. You know why? Because they want to win an election, and that's the only way they can do it.
And from the House, the impeachment case moves to the Senate. And we're learning Senate Republicans are considering not calling any witnesses. This means Democrats wouldn't be able to call any either, speeding up the process.
Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson joins us now with more. Abby, is this idea popular among senators?
Well, right now it seems to be. Their top Republicans like Senator John Thune and Lindsey Graham have expressed interest in not having witnesses come forward. They believe there really isn't an appetite in either party for a long, drawn-out Senate trial when they think that the outcome of this is going to be inevitable. And if Republicans can't call witnesses forward, then that would mean Democrats would not be either. This would keep the trial in the Senate a little shorter. They think that that is what everyone would prefer. And I spoke with Republican Senator Mike Braun, who told me that he's fine with not having witnesses in the Senate, but he thinks that ultimately Senate Republicans should look to the White House and do whatever the White House would like to see. Take a look.
I think what I'd like to see there is what the president would think would be the best way to litigate his defense. He's taken the brunt of it. And to me, if he would want witnesses called, I think that delays it. There might be some pitfalls associated with it, because I'm guessing we'd probably have to let their witnesses in as well. If they don't give us any new information, what's the point?
Senator Braun also told me he believes Democrats have tainted the process since they were calling for impeachment before President Trump even was inaugurated.
we've learned nothing new, and I think for the Democrats, the thing has got to be excruciating is that public support has turned so against it, not only on the issue of impeachment, they now show President Trump leading, in swing states. This is their worst nightmare, but they deserve it when they were so adamant about trying to derail the president from the get-go when they had no idea what the reason might be.
And politically, as he just mentioned, Senator Braun thinks that this is actually helping President Trump. And he said to pay close attention when the Senate trial is going on to 3 key senators, Democrat senators that lean more moderate, Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, and Doug Jones, who he thinks there is a high chance that they will actually vote with Senate Republicans to acquit President Trump. Back to you, John and Jenna.
All right, Abigail Robertson on Capitol Hill. Thank you.
Well, here now, CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, do you agree with what Abby just said, Senator Braun's sentiment saying that impeachment is helping the president?
Yes, 100%. And let me even go a step further. May I make a prediction? Can I do that? Should I look into the camera? Will that be more dramatic?
But you have to be correct.
Oh, never mind then. I like to retract that. No, look, here's the prediction. Before the whole Ukraine impeachment stuff was going on, I was 50-50 from an analysis standpoint as whether or not Donald Trump was going to win re-election. I'm going to look in the camera. I am now on record to say he will win in a landslide November 2020 for 2 reasons. 1, Democrats have overplayed their hand. And number 2, the Democrats don't have a good candidate. You put those 2 things together, we'll see what happens between now and November. A lot of different things could go on. But I'll tell you what, that's my prediction.
Bold prediction.
Okay. Let's have a sound effect. Gabe, remember that. Gabe's our producer.
David, so Senate Republicans are saying they might not call witnesses if this does, in fact, go to the Senate. Looks like it will. What do you make of that?
Yeah, they probably won't because they need 50-plus votes to call a witness. The Republicans. They have 52 Republicans. You're going to lose Romney. You're going to lose Lisa Murkowski. And you're going to lose Susan Collins. So you're not going to have the votes to even call the witnesses. So it's not going to be a circus. There are going to be no witnesses. Great. A trial without any witnesses. Fantastic.
David,
welcome to Washington.
David, stick around. We want to talk with you a little bit later.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Well, when we come back, the president issues an executive order targeting anti-Semitism. Why that's generating some controversy.
Having sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Welcome back. Well, President Trump is targeting growing anti-Semitism on college campuses with a new executive order.
That's right. It orders a federal, actually broadens a federal definition in order to protect Jews from discrimination while attending school. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us with the details. Ben?
Well, John, Jenna, President Trump has strongly supported Israel, and this latest move highlights how the administration continues to fight for the Jewish people.
to the courts.
President Trump's latest executive order targets discrimination, specifically anti-Semitism on college campuses. It's reported this order also changes the definition of Judaism to include nationality. That means certain anti-Israel movements would be considered a form of anti-Semitism.
Sadly, BDS has also made disturbing headway on American college campuses.
Schools not addressing anti-Israel movements could lose federal funding under the Civil Rights Act of 1963. This past weekend at the Israeli-American Council National Summit, President Trump invited NYU grad Adela Kohab to talk about a complaint she filed before graduating.
My university failed to protect its Jewish community from ongoing harassment. From attacks on social media, to resolutions on student government, to boycotts, flag burnings, and physical assault.
Trump also called out anti-Semitism among lawmakers in D.C.
You've got to be very careful. Make no mistake, radical lawmakers who support the BDS movement are advancing anti-Israel and anti-Semitic propaganda, and Americans will not stand for it.
Trump's new order follows Tuesday's shooting in New Jersey that left 6 people dead in a targeted attack on a Jewish deli. Jersey City's mayor tweeted, "I'm Jewish and proud to live in a community like Jersey City. Hate and anti-Semitism have never had a place here in JC and will never have a place in our city." Now, critics argue this order could be used to limit criticism of Israeli government actions, but the White House here behind me says this move is not intended to limit freedom of expression. John, Jenna?
All right, Ben Kennedy at the White House. Well, here now to continue our discussion is CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, let's just talk about that. Some American Jews are angry about the president's decision to define Judaism as a nationality. Why is that?
Well, before we get to the why, can we just clear up something? Judaism is a nation. It's a no-brainer. I understand there's a bit of controversy with that, but it is a nation. I mean, if we look at dictionary definitions of a nation, descent, culture, language, history, the Bible, go to Genesis, folks, it's in there. The Jewish people, Judaism is a nation. But what American Jews, many of them secular, obviously, many of them liberal, believe something very different. They believe this is, in essence, an anti-Semitism trope, is what they believe. They believe, look, if you say a Jew is from another nation, in other words, they're from the nation of Israel, which they don't believe, well, then the white supremacists out there will say, go back to your own country. I mean, that's the idea that you're not really an American, you're part of Israel, and you're not a true American. That's part of it.
Critics say this is a way to kind of ethno-nationalize Jews.
Yeah, and so this is what their main case is, and they point to the white supremacist language, and they include Donald Trump in a lot of that. They say that Donald Trump, by hiring Stephen Miller as a White House senior advisor and putting out, changing this definition of nationalism as it relates to Judaism, that's all kind of code, a wink-wink to the white supremacists. Give me a break. Looking into the camera, give me a break. It's not true, but that is a concern. I do think it's contingent upon evangelicals to do research for themselves and actually understand that this is very hurtful to many American Jews when you say that you are that nationalism or the nationality is Jewish, because once again that means you're from another country and not America, and that hurts American Jews. Something to think about.
I understand what you said to the first question about Judaism representing a nation, but does this order specifically into semantics change the definition of what people understand as Judaism? Does an executive order have the power to change the definition of a word?
No, absolutely not. It does have the power to protect, and I think that's the key here. The power to protect Jews on campus, obviously, that are under anti-Semitic attacks. And so I think that's the key difference there.
Some say this is a move to attempt to limit free speech. David, is there a potential that this could limit free speech?
Well, I think we're going to find out. And I know there's a lot with the BDS movement out there, that boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, and whether or not that will curtail some of that on campus. If it does, well, that could be an infringement on free speech. Look, you can protest, or you can have a for BDS view. That should be allowed, but what's the difference between that and actually going full tilt into the anti-Semitic world?
Right. So it's kind of a buffer before you even get to that place.
Yes, for sure.
All right, David Brody, again, thank you for being with us.
Guys.
Thanks, David. Coming up, sanctuary cities for the unborn. What's behind this growing U.S. trend?
Yeah,
On the Home Front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Well, welcome back. They're popping up all over small towns in Texas, sanctuary cities, but not the kind you're probably thinking of. Unlike sanctuary cities for migrant workers, these cities are safe havens for the unborn.
Yeah, so what is behind this new trend, and how are pro-abortion forces pushing back? Caitlin Burke takes us to Texas to find out.
Welcome to Gilmer, Texas. Population just over 5,000, home of the East Texas Jamboree Festival, and a safe haven for the unborn.
This is a pro-life community. We do not want abortion providers coming here or abortion clinics coming here.
In September, Gilmer joined a growing list of Texas town councils who have signed an ordinance banning abortion. While many of the towns passing the bans don't currently have abortion clinics, Catherine Pitcher of Texas Right to Life says it's about being prepared for the future.
Even though abortions may not be happening in these towns which have already passed the ordinance, they are still looking towards a nation and a state that is post Roe versus Wade. So once Roe versus Wade is overturned, the most likely thing that's going to happen is the Supreme Court is going to send the question back to the states, which is where the question was before Roe versus Wade. There were states who had abortion legal and states who didn't. And so once that happens, we want Texas to be prepared.
If Roe overturned, these bans would then be enforceable. The ordinance being pitched to town councils across Texas declares abortion murder and bans the procedure within city limits. It does not penalize women who seek or undergo abortions.
So the criminal provisions of the ordinance, the reason that's a good deterrent currently for an abortion provider moving into city limits is the ordinance goes into effect immediately. And so what the city is saying is, past this date, we have the intent in the future to go back and prosecute criminally every abortion which has occurred since the ordinance passed.
We've been silent too long, and if we, under municipal law, can do what we're doing, let's do it. If at anything, you're just making a statement, making a stand, and if we can't do that, why are we in the battle in the first place?
As town councils across Texas consider the sanctuary city for the unborn ordinance, pro-life activists hope the local support will get the attention of the state.
So what we saw this last legislative session is that any effective change for the pro-life cause is going to come from the citizens. Our elected officials respond most to citizens using their voices.
There have been no legal challenges to the bans yet, but there has been pushback. Over the summer, the Austin City Council approved $150,000 to cover costs for women seeking abortions who live at least 100 miles from an abortion facility. And pro-choice groups NARAL and the Lilith Fund recently placed a large billboard outside of the first city to pass the abortion ban. It reads, "Abortion is freedom." Still, one by one, more cities are getting on board, enthusiastic to make a stand for the unborn.
We talk about giving human rights to Happy the elephant. That's an article in New York. Orangutan with human rights to begin new life in Florida. What does that say about the unborn child when we're going to give animals more rights to that unborn child? I personally cannot be a part of that without standing up and saying something.
Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Gilmer, Texas.
Coming up, the youngest person of the year ever. We'll take a look at Time Magazine's selection.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. Whoa! It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man. Come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Finally tonight, Time Magazine is out with its Person of the Year.
Time has awarded 16-year-old Greta Thunberg as its Person of the Year after helping spark hundreds of climate protests around the world. With the Swedish teen's continued school strikes for climate, her activism provoked sparring with some of the most powerful politicians in the United States and Europe and gave voice to youth and climate activists across the globe. This year's runner-ups included the Hong Kong protesters, the Ukraine whistleblower, Donald Trump, and Nancy Pelosi.
She's a force to be reckoned with, we'll say that for sure.
Also, some pretty powerful contenders there.
Yeah, she did. Hong Kong, Nancy Pelosi, Donald Trump.
Well, that's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation.
Have a great evening.